At my sister's birthday celebration, we gathered in an upscale downtown Chicago restaurant where every surface gleamed, the walls, the crystal glasses, even the guests acting as though their lives were flawless. People wore outfits suited for a mini wedding. Sharp suits, elegant heels, glittering dresses. The atmosphere buzzed with high volume, laughter, anecdotes, endless pours of wine. Seated right next to me was my husband, Daniel, reserved, composed, entirely unlike the boisterous vibe surrounding us. He never chased a spotlight. He simply existed in it with quiet confidence. He held perfect posture, paid attention when others talked, offered courteous smiles and occasional brief remarks. Yet amid my sister's outgoing friends and their theatrical tales, he almost blended into the background. Perhaps that very quietness stirred something foolish in me, urging me to prod him, to provoke some visible reaction, to make him match the outgoing, expressive guys these gatherings always seemed to celebrate. I had no clue how profoundly I would come to regret that impulse. The trouble started when the discussion turned to romantic effort in relationships. My sister's recently engaged friend began boasting about her fiancé as though he stepped straight out of a fairy tale. Regular getaways, thoughtful surprises, personal handwritten messages, relaxing massages, office flower deliveries. Other pairs chimed in, chuckling, poking fun, swapping stories of affectionate acts. Someone posed a question. Who's the most romantic man here at the table? She squealed, pointed at her fiancé, and the group clapped enthusiastically. Then, out of nowhere, I can't recall exactly who, someone pivoted to me and teased, "So, how's your husband faring when it comes to keeping you satisfied?" It was intended as light-hearted banter. I could have simply answered, "He's wonderful," and let it pass, but some mix of pride, doubt, foolishness, whatever it was, drove me to deliver the absolute worst possible response. Raising my wine glass, I gave a smirk and declared loud enough for the whole table to catch, "Honestly, I think I need a new husband." Laughter erupted quickly, yet it rang hollow, the uneasy kind people force when they're caught between amusement and unease over someone being targeted. I sensed a shift in mood, but rather than back off, I doubled down. I nudged Daniel's shoulder and continued. "Seriously, if anyone knows a guy who actually listens and takes real initiative, send him my way." My sister's expression turned rigid in an instant. She recognized I had gone too far. Her fiancé averted his gaze. One friend chewed her lip in discomfort. And Daniel, he simply fixed his eyes on me. No fury, no visible pain, only a chilling detachment. A heavy pause hung there, unnerving me in ways I couldn't yet grasp. Deliberately, he placed his fork down. No haste, no nervous movements, no alteration in his calm breathing. It was the serenity of someone who had, in that exact moment, ceased to invest any further care. He dabbed his fingers with his napkin, folded it precisely onto the table, and when he finally spoke, his tone stayed low, even and cutting in a way I'd never encountered before. "Well," he said, "if you're accepting applications, I'll happily step aside and vacate the role tonight." The atmosphere shattered. Every noise in the place evaporated. Clinking plates, background music, surrounding chatter, all of it. The silence was so complete, you could have heard the tiniest object fall. He had more to say. Easing back just a touch, gaze unwavering on mine, he went on with that same frigid composure. "You make light of wanting a new husband, but perhaps you ought to consider why your current one eventually quit making the effort." A soft gasp escaped from someone nearby. My pulse hammered wildly inside my ribcage. His delivery wasn't raised, yet each phrase landed with crushing force. He pressed forward. "You've dedicated so much time to ridiculing, diminishing, framing everything as a punchline. Eventually, people lose a desire to keep participating." He held the silence briefly, allowing the statement to pierce through me. "If you believe putting someone down equals being witty, it's no surprise you're hunting for substitutes. You never learn to appreciate what's right in front of you." I attempted to respond, my words trembling. "Daniel, I was only—" He lifted a hand with gentle firmness. That small motion shut me down entirely. "No," he stated. "Enough. You weren't merely joking. You meant it sufficiently to voice it in front of everyone." He took a measured sip of water, then continued, his restraint more intimidating than any outburst could have been. You've humiliated me in the past, but this evening you humiliated yourself far more than you seem to grasp. My sister had gone ashen. Her friend murmured, "Holy wow." The waiter halted mid-step, then discreetly retreated. As for me, the color drained completely from my cheeks. In all our years together, I'd never witnessed Daniel in this state. Not even close. He wasn't enraged. He was done, utterly and irreversibly done. That truth struck my core like an anvil. He rose from his seat. No exaggerated motions, no pounding the table, nothing performative. He smoothed his jacket, positioned his napkin tidily next to his plate, and regarded me with absolute closure in his expression. "You want a new husband," he murmured. "Fine, because after tonight, you won't need to keep up the pretense." My throat constricted painfully. "Daniel, please." He didn't even pivot fully toward me. He simply answered, "That's precisely the issue. You only offer, please, once the harm is irreversible." Then he departed. No shouting, no spectacle, no explosion, just a composed, utterly devastating withdrawal. The entire table remained motionless for what felt like an eternity. My sister gaped at me in shock. Her fiancé muttered, "Damn, he truly meant every word." Another person whispered, "Why on earth would you say something like that to him?" I felt myself collapsing inward against the chair, warmth rushing to my face as the full gravity of my actions finally crashed down. I had driven off the one constant supporter in my life. I had ridiculed the man who'd stood beside me through every challenge. I had reduced him to a punchline, and he had finally refused to tolerate it any longer. Gradually, the restaurant's ambient sounds crept back in, yet the humiliation refused to lift. It intensified, growing denser, more deafening, more suffocating. Because Daniel's frigid, measured response wasn't merely a sharp retort. It wasn't simply an isolated instant. It represented a definitive fracture, one entirely of my own making through my reckless, thoughtless words.